as we move forward in our presentation, what most people think about as estate planning is a will. They say, oh, I have a will, I have an estate plan. I want to tell you that you don't have a plan. You have a will. And what a will is a distribution of your assets to somebody. It is not, and I repeat this, it is not a tax plan. It's nothing but a distribution plan. There is no tax planning whatsoever in a will. So I'm just going to go back in history and talk about how that has come about. So as we all know, our laws follow British laws, and the original British laws were created in the 14th century. And at that time, there were two classes. We had the very, very wealthy and the very, very poor. Now that we opened an office in the UK, I found out I was the very, very poor. In fact, I was a ward of factory. So one day I'll be able to do estate planning. But as it progressed, what happened is the very, very wealthy, the kings, the lords of the day, created what they call common law and started to allow us to use a will to transfer our wealth to our family. But as you all know, when somebody dies, the king and the lords would send people out to collect the land tax back from them before whatever was remaining could go to the children. Does that sound like today? It hasn't changed. From all that time until present, that's exactly how a will works. And that's why I share with you, it is not a tax plan. You give your estate away, the tax man comes in, he takes his cut, and away he goes. And so we need a modern Robin Hood, and that is me. No, I think it's Henry. So ultimately, it is a plan that I think only applies to families with a net worth lesser than $1 million. If your net worth is over $1 million, I think you have outgrown a will, and you need to move into the next level of planning. You've outgrown it. So that being said, I want to talk about my husband, Harry, because he needs to be put on the hot seat for once in his life. I was really very blessed. As a young girl, I met my husband when I was 13, and he's been my childhood sweetheart. So he's been nothing but supportive of me my whole life, except in one way. And this way is quite evil, I think. And so we were probably only a year married, and we were sitting at the table, and he said to me he had a goal to outlive me. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, no, I have a goal to outlive you. I said, why? Because I'm going to be a cruise ship dancer. So I told him he should learn to dance. So ultimately, imagine Harry and I built our estate our whole life, and like you as families, we put half in my name and half in his name because that's good tax planning. But then I die, and I give him everything through a will, and he meets the most beautiful cruise ship redhead dancer. What happens to our estate? She gets it. What happens to our family? They don't get it. So the problem with a will is it does not protect your bloodline. So I was mean in my estate plan. I said he could have my whole estate, but he had to have it in something called a trust. And what a trust is it's just a holding pot for our estate, and he can use it and give flowers to the ladies as much as he would like. However, when he dies one day, it will transfer back to our family. And so it bloodline protects our family. Now, more importantly than that is, what if Harry meets the wrong redhead and she takes his money away from him in elder years? Now we have a real dilemma because he's not retired anymore. And so this is a really precarious and dangerous position for us to find ourselves in our 80s and 90s, realizing we've entered a second relationship and only have half of the estate we thought we had. So the way around it is a special trust that everyone can use in Canada. It is called a spousal trust. Spousal trust. And if you use that to transfer your wealth to your loved one, they can use it at will, but it protects them, It acts like a natural prenup. And not only that, it acts as bloodline protection. So it serves multiple purposes. So once we're done the legacy plan so that your husband can become a cruise ship dancer, then you can move on to your life plan. And once you move on to your life plan should really be driven by your goals and objectives. That is, what do you want to do? I will tell you in my experience that it takes most of our families that we work alongside, I would say between 3 to 5 years to figure out what they want to do trying to grow up in retirement. It's really quite a journey. I've had clients who've bought a helicopter and then thought that was a really bad idea and I don't know how to sell it. I've had other clients that think they want a snowbird but don't enjoy it. And then I have others that get it right the first time. I just want to say to you, being that you're going to be in retirement longer than you are working, that's okay if it takes you a little bit of time to figure this out. And it typically does. But there are some risks that we're going to face in the decades ahead. And so I always like to share them with you. And I'm going to share a particular case. Is a lovely lady I worked with over the years, and she lived on Elbow Drive. And she had lost her husband when she came to see us. And so we designed her estate for it to transfer to her son. But what we did is we didn't just use the trust for when she was gone. We used it now in the present. And so we put her estate into the trust today, and we wrapped around it. And what ended up happening is her puppy got loose and caused a car accident on Elbow Drive. Now they connected the dots and thought, she lives on Elbow Drive. She must have money. And they sued her. So the first instance, we took the claim to our home insurance. And just so you know, home insurance doesn't pay if your dog causes a car accident unless it's on leash. If it's off leash, they don't pay. So they got out of it. So I said to her, they're suing you because they think you have a lot of affluence. Why don't we disclose to them that you've put your wealth into trust for you and your son, and they'll know you're, quote, penniless, and they'll just go away. And that's exactly what happened. So you can see that we need this kind of protection in decades ahead because we take on a great deal of risk in retirement. Let me share some of the examples for you. In modern times, I am finding that my business owners don't fully retire. They continue managing their businesses to a degree, and so they take on liability doing that. I have many people that do volunteer work and are on boards of directors and have liability in those ways. And then there's another big risk, obviously. The stock markets move around and that can jeopardize you. And the last risk is really an interesting one that's more prominent than it has been before. And it's that one where you guys are driving those massive motorhomes and RVs that you don't have a special driver's license for. And I don't really understand why you don't, but you're down in the US driving them around. Now, what if you get in an accident? In America, they have a treaty with Canada that they can sue us through. But they can't if we protected our estate in a trust in our life. So it's a very protective way to make sure that we are protecting our loved ones.